Dean Upnasia, members of the faculty, invited guests, and members of the BU School of Hospitality's class of 2024. All of us gathered here today embarked on an academic journey in the pursuit of excellence in the hospitality field, making brand audit presentations for Professor Katz, mastering managerial accounting with Professor Jung, brainstorming innovations in the restaurant industry with Professor Gerber. Through it all, we forged bonds that transcend friendships. A wise angel second class named Clarence once said, "No one is a failure who has friends." I watched that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, every December growing up. So the movie's theme was drilled into me. As we go through life, in ways large and small, each of us impacts everyone else. With that in mind, I'd like to share a story from SHA's spring break trip to New York. After one of the site visits, we had free time before our next activity. I was with two classmates, and we were in the East Village, near a small fried chicken sandwich place that I'd been to before, named Rowdy Rooster. For background, Rowdy Rooster is part of an Indian restaurant group with several fine dining restaurants, Dhamaka, Atta, and Sema. To further set the scene, the two classmates I was with were Devay and Harshit. So yes, in a time when cultural appropriation is fraught with risk, I brought two Indian classmates with me to get Indian food. I'm sure Devay and Harshit were wondering, why is this white guy bringing us to an Indian restaurant? And Devay even commented to the manager as we ordered, with a knowing look and an emphasis on the first word, he's the one who brought us here. The thing is, I knew how good their sandwiches were. Despite the name Rowdy Rooster, I knew that the ownership had serious culinary chops. I knew my classmates would like the food. What I didn't know was that the food was so authentic that it would remind them of home. Those of you who have seen Devay's podcast, shout out to the SHAcast, know this part. In their 9 months in the US, neither of them had eaten anything close, but that sandwich gave them a taste of home that they'd been craving. When we left, I don't know who was more excited, the two of them because of what the food meant to them, or me because for me, creating that moment, helping create that experience captures the essence of hospitality, making special moments happen for people. In all careers, it's a truism that you need real-world experience to complement the theory of academia. But with all due respect to our faculty, it feels even more true when it comes to hospitality. Before I decided to go back to school, I worked for 5 seasons on the island of Nantucket as a bartender, barback, busser, host, kitchen expediter, food runner, bouncer, dishwasher, prep cook, server, manager, schlepper, which was the catering company's fun name for a laborer, oyster shucker, and even one day as a fry cook. One day, I want to say that I've done every job in a restaurant, including owner, and not be lying. Over the past 5 years, if you've been to Nantucket and been to a beach bar called Sandbar at Jetties, I've most definitely served you and potentially overserved you. But Sandbar will always be a special place for me. Nick, George, Jamie, Emily, and Manny, Sandbar's owners, saw something in me. They saw how I interacted with people, built relationships with regulars and locals, established connections with tourists, and how I enjoyed the little moments that might make someone's day. And Sandbar is where I started to think hospitality as a career. There is a hugely disrespectful question that I am often asked, thankfully mostly from strangers. When are you going to get a real job? Maybe one reason people have asked me that question is I have so much fun at work that to other people, it doesn't seem that my job is real. I came back to school to get a master's in hospitality because a little voice in my head kept saying, I think this is a real job. In that vein, in my 4th season working at Sandbar, I became an assistant manager. On my first day managing, I learned an important lesson. For context, on a typical weekend day, Sandbar serves around 1,000 people. In the morning, we had a meltdown, all because an 18-year-old server asked the chef if our burgers came with mayo. And instead of just saying no, They decided to lose their mind on her so bad enough that she was in tears, and I had to send him home. Trust me, that's the last thing that a manager wants to do on their first day. Down a chef, the rest of the day just snowballed. By 5:30, we had a 2.5-hour wait list. At 6 p.m., I was standing at the host station catching my breath with one of the owners, and a woman walks up and asks for a table for one. I explained how long the wait was and apologized. She told me that wasn't good enough, and as she began to complain, she raised her voice and began to say some not so very nice things, but in a way that somehow didn't seem right. The behavior wasn't what she was really all about. We were used to receiving complaints about the wait list, but here something was different. I don't know why, but in that moment I asked, "Are you okay?" She stopped yelling and started to cry. At this point, Nick, the owner, grabbed a spare beach chair, a bottle of wine, and sat her in the sand with a menu. "Order whatever you'd like, it's on me." As she stopped crying, she apologized profusely. It turned out her husband had died a few months prior. She said her late husband used to make the reservations and that she just had a really long day. Nick replied with a smile, "That makes 3 of us." In that moment, Nick taught me a lesson I'll never forget. People visit restaurants for many reasons. Sometimes it's a celebration of a moment. Most of us leaving this graduation today will likely be headed to a restaurant or a bar. Maybe you just got out of work and could really use that cocktail. I know that day I sure did. As a hospitality professional, you never know what someone else is going through. In that moment, while I don't think that Nick has ever read Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, he definitely recognized that that woman needed something to happen for her rather than to her. My point in sharing these personal stories is there's so much to learn about hospitality outside the classroom. I'm so grateful for the connections that I've made here at SHA and for the skills that I've learned. All my previous teachers and professors would have laughed at me saying I willingly want to attend more school and definitely would not have believed that I could get straight A's. My girlfriend, parents, brothers, and grandparents, who are all here today, and thank you, by the way, for putting up with me, still want to see a copy of that transcript. But the measure of someone's hospitality intelligence cannot be measured by grades, but rather by the relationships we nurture and the impact we have on those around us. Clarence definitely had that right. I hope that with the enhanced skills that our education here has provided us, no matter which field in hospitality we choose to pursue a career in, whether it be hotels or restaurants, marketing, revenue management, or event planning, anything in between or beyond, we do not forget the core of what hospitality is all about. The most complex, disruptive, difficult to control element in the entire universe, humans, and making special moments happen for them. Thank you.